In boxing, it is very easy to build a fighter based on the unbeaten record model, as protecting a fighter's oath has become an obsession with many promoters as they protect their assets from fighting the best in their weight class. Padded records and excuses seemingly seem to be normal practice of the sweet science today, but many have faced the consequences for following this risky path, as you will see today. In 2014, Peter Quillin was an unbeaten middleweight world champion on the rise, following 31 straight wins, following notable wins over Winky Wright and Hassam Endamanjikum.
5 seconds remaining left, and down goes and down again! Beautiful effort.
Before he would be matched up against the two-time world amateur champion and WBO mandatory challenger Matt Korobov, defeating Jose Ukatsky, and was viewed by many to be the most feared man in the division. This would be until Quillin, under the supervision of Al Heyman and most of all Jay-Z, as it was rumoured that Peter was offered $1.4 million by Jay-Z to drop his title in order to avoid facing off against Korobov. So the WBO sanctioned a fight between Matt Korobov against the lightly regarded Irishman Andy Lee, whose last crack at a world title ended in disappointment at the hands of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Chavez just walking through, pounding Lee to the body, hammering him against the ropes.
There he is. He's out.
Got a knockout coming. He's badly hurt. Lawrence goes to stop the fight.
With Andy Lee being a big underdog going in, he would do the unthinkable in many people's eyes when he would upset the odds by knocking out the Russian in the 6th round to become world champion.
Danny Bayless stops the fight with Korobov standing up, and Andy Lee has another miracle victory.
That is so far the signature win of Andy Lee's career.
Within 3 months of this fight, Quillin would use his bargaining power of Al Heyman to order an immediate showdown against Lee for his old title. The beginning of their fight would see Quillin cruising to victory when he would send Lee crashing down to the canvas, but if no one had knew by now that Lee was not there to make up the numbers, when he would get up to drop Quillin before going on to gain a draw in Quillin's backyard of Brooklyn to retain his title. The story of Joe Smith Jr. is incredible. His rise from construction worker to world champion is truly inspirational, but we will look back on his breakout performance when at the time Andrzej Fonfara was a highly regarded light heavyweight, following his valiant effort against then light heavyweight champion Adonis Stevenson.
He's actually slipped them sometimes.
And Fonfara comes back. Left hook tag Stevenson. Stevenson's more. And Stevenson now goes to work. A clubbing left hand. Fonfara. These two courageous warriors putting it all on the line here in the final minute and change in Montreal.
Fonfara was on a run of 3 straight victories after stopping Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and his record-breaking war against Nathan Cleverly, so many saw Fonfara against Smith as a formality, with Smith entering the fight as an 18-1 underdog as the full-time construction worker who would box professionally on the side before he would shock the world with his destructive knockout over the Polishman. Artur Beterbiev, as we know him today, has taken the place of Gennady Golovkin as the bogeyman in boxing. The unified light heavyweight champion has stopped every man who has stepped into the ring with him to this date. However, in late 2014, being 5-0, with Beterbiev having turned over to the professional ranks late on, he would be matched up against former light heavyweight champion Tavoris, who had just came off back-to-back defeats for world titles. It was seen as a sink or swim fight for Beterbiev, who had fought no one of the level of Cloud professionally. Many tipped Cloud to pick up the win and have another crack at world honours. That would be until, after a tentative opening minute from both fighters, Beterbiev opened up and began landing power shots that visibly rocked shocked Cloud. In the final minute, the Russian would drop his opponent 3 times via combinations. Before this fight, Cloud had never been dropped in his professional career. Beterbiev would close the show in the second round, landing multiple hard shots to the head that knocked Cloud out, therefore putting everyone on notice in boxing of who Beterbiev was.
How has Cloud managed to recover? And that is an absolutely jolting left hand from Beterbiev. You can see the head snap, and Tavoris Cloud is down and out. Artur Beterbiev has got his 6th professional win. This one, though, is not against a journeyman. This is against a man who's been challenging the world titles in recent times.
James Kirkland, back in the late 2000s, was seen as a middleweight Mike Tyson with knockout power in both hands. James was viewed at the time to be one to go on to be a world champion one day, until legal issues would see him in and out of the ring over a 3-year period. Being 27-0 and free from past dramas, Kirkland would be matched up against the lightly regarded 22-6 Japanese boxer Nobuhiro Ishida, who had only had a handful of knockout victories to his name. But the Japanese fighter turned the tables in the fight when he would go on to rock Kirkland, sending him down in the very first round until he would go on to stop the American, forcing the referee to stop the contest.
In 3 rounds to deal with 2 opponents, and now he gets caught on a quick counter right inside and goes down.
5,
no one expected that.
6,
He is hurt.
7, 8.
That's not a slip. That's
got blocked.
a Kirkland's in trouble knockdown from a guy who can't punch.
That's exactly right. A guy with only 6 knockouts in 28 previous fights, 30 previous fights.
Kirkland was wobbled against an unknown Colombian fighter in his last fight, but he came back to knock the guy out in the second round.
Well, it's fascinating that Kirkland's already been down, because you heard the enthusiasm of the crowd as he was introduced. Kirkland arouses a lot of enthusiasm as a monster. He's getting badly out-techniqued right now by Nobuhiro Ishida, who looks utterly fearless, and that isn't the profile that most Kirkland opponents portray. Down goes Kirkland a second time.
4, 5.
David Lemieux, was the middleweight
7,
puncher from Canada, was
8.
upset
You okay? Take a step
last
forward.
night by knockout against Rubio.
There's no 3 knockdown rule in effect, so a 3rd knockdown here for Ishida will not necessarily mean the end of the fight. Kirkland obviously isn't covering or holding up. He wants to fight back, and he's getting countered at every turn by Ishida, who's been brilliant so far.
Kirkland is a sitting duck for Ishida's right hand. There it is again.
3rd knockdown now, and Joe Cortez is stopping the fight. James Kirkland was fighting Cortez to try to get up, and Cortez pushed him down. He stopped the fight. James Kirkland has been knocked out.
Shocking. We saw James Kirkland walk through 7, 8 rounds of brutal punches from Joel Julio. 6 rounds of those punches, and Joel Julio's a real puncher. Without wobbling, to knock out Joel Julio, and here a light punching middleweight knocks him out in 1 round.
Were it not for the raw craft of Kirkland, the obvious absence of technical skill, particularly defensively, I would be saying that this is the most shocking thing I've seen in 25 years of calling fights.
Boxing is always full of surprises, and trying to cherry pick your way to the top of the sport, like many boxers have tried, will only get you so far in this sport, as many fighters have found out.